Today we're going to start Tafches Amud B's 28b. We're going to start this two dots just like 4 lines up, 5 lines up. We thank Hashem we're able to learn every day. That's about learning. Base Migdash immediately. Okay, we learned in the Mishnah if someone says these saplings should be a carbon if I don't cut them. So that's a condition, right? He makes a condition. So if he doesn't cut them, then they become a carbon. The Mishnah says that yesh lahem pidyon, which means that he's required to redeem them, which means they become sanctified or forbidden, whatever the pshat is. Now, the next case of the Mishnah was that these saplings are a carbon until he cuts them. Then the Mishnah says that they have no, the halacha of this, the ruling on this case is that they have no redemption. Gemara asked, in the first case, he didn't mean to tell me that they need to be redeemed. He meant to tell me that they're consecrated. If they're consecrated, then they need to be redeemed. Why don't you just tell me that they're consecrated? I said, well, because it wanted to make it symmetrical to the end of the Mishnah, but the end of the Mishnah says that they can't be redeemed. So here we say they can be redeemed, but we really mean to say in the beginning of the Mishnah is that it's consecrated. But we have this halacha in the end of the Mishnah where something cannot be redeemed. So the Gemara now says, again, that case was, someone says these saplings are a carbon until they're cut down. The Gemara says now, Harina Tiasela carbon chulu uli ilam. The ilam is going on the chulu, and the chulu is the etc. That they cannot be redeemed. They can never be redeemed. What's going on? The way the hektish doesn't need the saplings. They need the money for the upkeep of the temple. So everything gets redeemed. So what is this concept of it doesn't get redeemed? It gets redeemed and then the money goes. Amar Bar Pada, Bar Pada says, Padan v'chayzreis v'kaytshais, Padan v'chayzreis v'kaytshais ad shiyitzitzu. The problem is that because he made this stipulation that these are consecrated until they're redeemed, that means even if until they're cut down, then even if he redeems them, the sanctity immediately goes back on it. And he has to redeem it again. It's like he said, it should continuously be consecrated. So that's what it means that it can't be redeemed, because how's he supposed to redeem it? Every time he redeems it, the sanctity comes back. Now, the next point of Bar Pada is niktzitzu. If they are cut down, then paidam hamachas b'daya, then he just redeems it and it's over. Again, his statement was that these saplings are consecrated or a sacrifice until he redeems them. Okay, now he redeemed them. Now they're not a sacrifice. Bar Pada says, but he has to redeem it first. I'm sorry, I'm saying cut down. These saplings are a sacrifice until they're cut down. Until they're cut down. Okay, now they're cut down. So now they're not a sacrifice, but he still needs to redeem them. Right? That's the opinion of Bar Pada. Ula says, once it's cut down, he doesn't need to redeem it at all. One thing's clear over here, that we have a machlekes between Bar Pada and Ula. If he has a stipulation, if he has a limit, a time limit on the consecration, when the time limit is up, what happens to the consecration? Barpada says, well, you redeem it and it's over. And Ula says, you don't need to redeem it. It's over automatically because there was a set time on it. There's a discussion here in the Ran. What about the first point of Barpada? Barpada's first point was that when you consecrate it and then you redeem it, because you set a time limit on it, so even after the redemption, the consecration comes back immediately. That's Barpada's statement. When we said that you can't redeem it, Ein Lampidyan, you can't redeem it. According to Barpada, that meant that every time you redeem it, it comes right back. That's before the time limit's up, the set time. But Ula doesn't tell me that. Ula just says that once it's cut down, I mean, if the time limit is finished, then you don't need to redeem it. What about during the time? Does he agree also that it comes back right away? That's the discussion here in the round. If the discussion is called Vitarti Pligi, are they arguing about two things? Or are they just arguing about what happens at the end? It's clear that they argue about what happens at the end. Do we need a redemption?
If you don't say a time limit is like eternal.
Yeah, but there's no time limit. Then when you redeem it, it's redeemed. But here then he gave a time limit. Maybe that time limit makes it worse, that every time you redeem it before the time limit, it keeps coming back. Because you said that it's going to be consecrated until that time. It's as if you said no matter what. Even after redemption, it's like you said, okay, it should take effect again. So the time limit that makes it worse in a way for Barpada. Possibly for Ula as well. Okay, based on this discussion, quotes the Rashba, quotes Reb Moshe Kartabi. I'm not sure who that is. Chacham HaGadol, he calls him. He's arguing on the Rashba. And ultimately what comes out is if someone makes a stipulation about money, and monetary matters, let's say he tells his friend, I'm selling this to you until I go to Yerushalayim. I'm selling you this property until I go to Yerushalayim. Go and acquire it. Well, the guy went and acquired it. And then the seller goes to the person that acquired it and buys it back. Does it automatically go back to the purchaser? The seller now becomes the purchaser. Does it go back to the original purchaser because there was a set time on it that said, I'm selling this to you until I go to Yerushalayim? And he didn't go to Yerushalayim yet. According to Barpada, he says, this is consecrated until I cut it down. Well, he just redeemed it. But so what? He said it's consecrated until he cuts it down. He didn't cut it down yet. The consecration immediately takes effect again. So maybe the same thing should apply to monetary things as well. And that's this discussion here in this first round. It applies to that. Well, what he means is to cut it. When it says netiyos, I'm calling them saplings, but it may mean like the fruit of the young tree or something. So you're removing it, which is fine. That's what you're supposed to do. How do they translate in the netiyos? Saplings. Okay.
But what's the redemption exactly here? You're transferring the kedusha.
Yeah, you put the kedusha onto money, and then you would give that money to the. Does it have to be the original, the perfect value? I think lechatchila it's supposed to be, but I'm not sure. I think it works even if it's not the exact value.
So is that money still kodesh, even though it got consecrated again?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I think so. It's as if he keeps repeating his consecration. I think that's what's happening. I'm sorry.
Why can't we learn this mission? This belongs to acquisition. Unless it accidentally, unless it gets knocked down, unless it gets cut down. It's that new year.
If it's not cut down.
Right, like
Right.
Unless there's some hurricane comes and knocks it down, I'll give it a second.
Okay.
Why can't we learn it that way?
then what happens if it does get knocked down?
You got destroyed, it's not hektish.
Okay. The background to this Mishnah was like this. There's a storm coming. He's so sure that they're not going to survive. So he says, these are hektish if they survive. He's sure that they're not surviving. He says, these are hektish if they survive. And it turns out that they did survive. He never meant to make them hektish if they survive. He was sure that they're lost. So he didn't even really have in mind that they should be hektish. He said they're hektish if they survive, but they're not surviving. So now that they survived, we say no, they're hektish. Because even though that's what he said, it was so clear, we have to take it serious, even though he probably didn't have an intention of that. Okay. What do you want to say? You want to say that okay, that part of the Mishnah is fine, that they become hektish. The second part of the Mishnah is the problematic one. It says these saplings are a carbon until they're cut down, not if they're cut down, until they're cut down.
Well, okay, but again, can't we understand it more until something happens that destroys them and makes them no longer valuable for carbon?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Now the question is, what happens if he redeems them in the middle?
Not that I proactively cut them down.
Right.
Until something happens.
Right. So they're hektish, no problem. Until something happens. Now, the Mishnah, the ruling of the Mishnah is Ein lahem pidyon. They have no redemption. Now the problem with that is, I wish it would have just said that they're kodesh, but it says much more than that. It says Ein lahem pidyon. They don't have any pidyon. So Bar Pada explains that what it means is that as much as you try to redeem it, it keeps coming back. That's what it means Ein lahem pidyon. Ula says that what it means is you don't need to redeem it, because once it gets cut down, there's no redemption. It's automatically out.
No, but you would possibly want to redeem it.
It's funny that Ula says shuv, like he doesn't have to redeem it again.
Yeah, but shuv is an expression that means from then on. It doesn't have to be. It means that shuv can mean then. No. Yeah. What are you saying? That you?
No, I understood to understand it's very different. But I understood the same thing. Like if it's still standing and it hasn't been knocked down, and now you had a change of heart, you would have the ability to redeem it in theory.
So what's the Ein lahem pidyon?
Right. So that's why
That's the
it's
problem.
challenging.
Right. So that's what Bar Pada is coming in and Ula's coming in. Okay. Amali Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna has. You have to be careful not to make it consecrated. Amalei Rav Hamnuna, Kedusha shebehen lahechan halcha. He's asking a question on Ula. How does something just go out of consecration, of sanctity, without any redemption? Where did the holiness disappear to? I would like to learn this. I don't know if it's going to play out, but I would like to learn this, that it has to do with two ways of approaching time. If you look at time as a continuum, so then where did it go to? Like what just happened here? Like how it was always holy and now all of a sudden it just stopped. But if you look at time as like segments, so no, I was only consecrated from here to here, just like in space. I didn't consecrate the rest of my land. I only consecrated, Dalet Amas. I didn't consecrate 8 Amas. So in time also, I consecrated it until then. So that's if time is a segment, then I'm fine. But if time is a continuum, so his question is, where did it go? It used to be holy, and now all of a sudden it's not holy. And what happened here? You can't just set a limit like that, and then all of a sudden it disappears. You have to take it away. He gives an example. let's say someone tells a woman, I guess he's giving her a ring. He says that you'll be. This is the props for today. Like, this is the woman, and where's the guy? Oh, then we have the guy. Need a stage for these. We need mitzvah kinder. They'll come with long sleeves. The women will. It's more tznius. So that's funny. So he tells her that today you'll be my wife, and tomorrow you're not my wife. Minafka b'leget. Actually, someone told me a story like this. These teenagers were playing this game, dare you or something. And one of them dared the other one to kiss this girl. So he had made a resolution that he's never gonna kiss a girl until he's married. So they dared him. He had to. So, someone over there had a ring. So he told him I can't because they said, oh, don't worry, just marry her for 5 minutes. So he gave her a ring, and there were boys over there and witnesses. He gave her a ring, and he said, you're married to me for 5 minutes. So that's a problem. I mean, it seems like a problem from this. Look at this Gemara. He tells a woman, Ilo Amalisha Hayaimat Yishti Ulamachariat Yishti Minafka B'Leget. Rav Hamnuna says she's gonna need a get. You can't just doesn't disappear, but just because you set a time limit on it, we're saying now that how can you consecrate something, set a time limit on it, or until it gets cut down, and then say now it just immediately goes away. You can't do that to in a marriage. You can't say that it just immediately disappears. Oh, Rav would when he would travel, he would have a wife prepared for him in different places.
I don't know why. I remember. I feel like we learned that there was some constant wives. He would just marry them for a very short period of time.
Yeah, that was Rav when he traveled.
One night stands today, but, you know.
Right. But that was he had to prepare them before then. They had to send beforehand. They would have to, I guess, go to the mikveh or something, and
the resume.
Right. Yeah. And then he would have to divorce them. So Amalei Rava says to Rav Hamnuna, Mika medamis kedushas damim lekedushas haguf, kedushas damim paka bichdi, kedushas haguf leipaka bichdi. Your comparison is not perfect. Woman gets married, she becomes a married woman. It's not that she's like a married woman. She is a married woman. When these things become consecrated, they don't become sacrifices. They have the value that's meant to be used for a sacrifice. It's just the value on them. It's not that the item itself becomes consecrated. So when we're saying that the value maybe could disappear, wasn't inherent that it becomes consecrated. By the woman, she's inherently married, and you can't say that it just goes away just because you set a time limit on the original marriage.
So far we have one example about money. That's what the trees are. It's about money.
It's really consecrating. When it comes to money, we have that was the Rashba quoting that.
Same, but you consecrate the tree in order to cut it down and convert it to money.
Oh, the money of the value, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And this is not hopefully more than about money in marriage.
Yeah.
So they're really
Right.
not the same.
Right. It's a change of status. A different. See what's really happening here. What's really happening is that anything that has a time limit on it cannot be inherently changed. If you're dealing with, let's take a look like this. What's the difference between leasing and buying? Leasing is you don't actually own the property. And together with that, you don't have it forever. When you buy it, you own it and you have it forever. So what you're looking at is the change in ownership. When you buy it, you can't have that. You can't buy it temporarily. So let's switch it. Let's buy it for a time limit. We call that leasing. You don't actually own it. Once you put a time limit on it, then it's not considered bought. We call that a lease.
There's an in between.
There is
The timeshares where you buy it for a week.
Yeah, so that's basically what we're discussing here. Is there an in between? Is there a possibility of having something that's inherent and also with a time limit on it? I think it really has to do with this, with the way you look at time. But anyway, yeah.
I'm sorry. In both of them, it looks like there's an action that must be taken in order. Like in a marriage, you have to do
A divorce. Right.
And here you have to redeem. You have to give the money.
Right, but apparently, according to Ula, you don't have to redeem. According to Ula, it goes out automatically because he said that it's consecrated only until it's cut down. Once it's cut down, it's not consecrated anymore. Rav Hamnuna says, how does that work? It compares it to a marriage. So Rav says it's not a good comparison to the marriage because a marriage is an inherent change in the woman, in the status of the woman, while here the consecration was not an inherent change in the object because this object was never going to be brought itself as a sacrifice. This object was a sapling. I'm only going to sell it and use it to buy things for the temple, but it's not inherent in that the sapling. It's not going to be an actual sacrifice. Okay.
Does a betrothal work the same as marriage, or is that the change of status?
I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing because the term here is kedusha, and well, Amalei Abaya says kedusha saguf lepaka b'chdi. You can't get rid of an inherent sanctity just just simply like that. It could go away. Discussion here in Iran. Does Abaya really hold this? I mean, what Abaya is about to suggest, would he really say that a woman's marriage could end because there was a time limit on the original kedusha? Is that what Abaya is suggesting? And the Ran doesn't really decide on this. Well, at least he starts off that there's two options about this. There's two ways. He's quoting a Rashba. There's two ways of looking at what Abaya is trying to say. Okay. Yeah.
But like in the example that you gave of Rob that used to marry,
He had to get divorced.
Get.
He had to get divorced, right?
Sweet.
Yeah. So, you're asking, so therefore Abaya, according to this, yeah,
I understand this. So like,
right. That would make sense. That would make sense. Well, Tanya, and this brisa is going to support Abaya's claim that there is a possibility of having something consecrated temporarily. Take a look at this. Sharza oila. This ox, if I bring it as a sacrifice this month, I'm going to bring it as an oila, a burnt offering. If I bring it after 30 days, then it's going to be a shlamim, a peace offering. The difference between the oila and the shlamim, the oila is entirely burnt, and the skin is the only part that's kept remaining that goes to the kayanim. The shlamim is not entirely burnt; it's eaten by the kayanim, by the owners and their friends in the city of Yerushalayim. So he says after 30 days, then the sanctity of this is going to shift from an oila to a shlamim. So what's the halacha? Kol lamed yom oila, lacha lamed yom shlamim. Unbelievable. It shifts. You put a time limit on it, and it shifts. It switches from an oila to a shlamim. That's a very good point. goes on. Amai, why does it shift? Kedushas haguf ninu baka b'chdi. Did I read the base? Okay, Ve'amai. You see what's going on? It automatically goes out of its sanctity because there was a time limit on it. So if that's the case, then the same thing should apply to when he consecrates that sapling, that he says that it's consecrated until it gets cut down. So once it gets cut down, it should go out automatically, as Ula suggested. But he's saying even more than that. What it looks like he's saying is that even the woman should not need a get.
But here it doesn't go away; it just gets transformed into a different kedusha.
Yeah, but the fact that it could get transformed is a proof that it could also go away.
Is shlamim less kedusha than ola? I guess it is.
Shlamim is actually less holy. An oila is kodesh kadashim, and shlamim is kachim kalim.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
why isn't that it sounds like almost a permitted tamura? You're making one thing and the korban you're switching for another, which you normally can't do.
Right. A tamura is a little different, but nevertheless, a tamura is when you exchange the actual animal for a different animal. This goes again. What we are learning here, I understand what's the difficulty here. It goes against everything that we've learned. This is not. We never learned anything like this before. That you should be able to do this. So take a look. What happens? The Gemara says here. What are we dealing with? Damar ledami. He said the value of it. He didn't actually consecrate. No, there's a slight problem here that needs to be resolved. That when someone consecrates an animal that's eligible to be brought as a sacrifice, and even if he consecrates it for its value, and he doesn't consecrate it as a sacrifice itself, it automatically turns into a sacrifice. So you can't really say the value of the sacrifice should be something. This animal that could be, you can't say the value of it because it automatically becomes inherent. There's a difference. It's called kedushas damim. Damim means money, and kedushas haguf means inherent. The body becomes consecrated. We're trying to differentiate between the two. The problem is that what we're answering now is we're saying that he never made this animal kedushas haguf, inherently holy. He only made its value holy. Kedushas damim. Damim is the value. Well, the way to resolve this is that what we're going to say is that the animal maybe had a mum, a blemish. If the animal has a blemish, then it doesn't become consecrated inherently. The commentaries here explain that. And so therefore, what he says is, if I bring the sacrifice within 30 days, which means not this animal, but I'm going to sell it and use its money within 30 days, then I'll bring it as an oila. If I bring the value of this after 30 days, then I'll bring it as a shlamim. So for that, he's able to do because it's not inherently consecrated.
How do we learn that before? That once you designate a sacrifice, like it can't be exchanged unless someone happens.
Right. If there is a mum, then he consecrated an animal that had a mum originally, not that it got a mum later. That becomes problematic, but it never got really consecrated. Now, if that's the case, the dummy, how does that for money? Would this resolve our issues? Yeah, that would resolve the issue because Abaya was claiming that kedushas haguf, an inherent holiness, should be able to disappear because of a time limit. And now we're saying that that was not the case here. The case over here was that it wasn't inherently holy. The Gemara says, Ihachi, if that's what you want to say, that it's not inherently holy, it's only a value. Ema Seifa, let's read further. Let's see, the person says, after 30 days, it should be an oila. And from now, it's a shlamim. Sounds very similar. What did he say before? These 30 days, it's an ayla. After 30 days, it's a shlamim. Now he's saying, or if he says after 30 days, it's an ayla, and these 30 days, it's a shlamim. So it's the opposite, but it's, I mean, like, what's the difference? There is a slight difference that is that you're going from a minor holiness to a more major holiness right now. You're going from a shlamim to an ayla. But he did say first, after 30 days, it's an ayla. And within the 30 days, it's a shlamim. That could also be a different, but whatever the case is, it doesn't tell me what the halacha is, but the two cases seem to have the same case. Why are they have two cases? If you want to tell me, well, one of them is talking about, we have two cases that are basically the same. One of them is talking about where it's inherently holy. And one of them is talking about where it's just value is holy. I understand why you have two cases. Maybe the inherently holy should be the only one, and that would teach me if the inherently holy can shift, then for sure the value can shift. We'll say like this, the inherently holy can shift, that's going upwards from a shlamim to an ayla maybe. But how do you know it can shift down? Right? And then it would tell me, also that the value can shift. If I'm dealing with value here, one of the cases is value, and one of the cases is inherent, so then good. It would make sense why I have two cases. Where's the problem? That's why I would need to have two cases. Because I could have thought, that I could have thought like this, that Kedushas Aguf really doesn't go up unless it's redeemed. Kedushas Damim could go off and it's redeemed. So I have two cases. The second case tells me that the Kedushas Aguf also goes off, that the inherently holy can also be removed. But if you want to tell me that there's only dealing here with value, that there is no inherent holiness here, it's all consecrated an animal to use its value, like an animal with a blemish, to use its value for an ayla and a shlamim. Why do you need a bunch of cases to tell me the same thing? Goes on. We started off the first case, that it went from Kedusha Chamura from an ayla, and it goes to a shlamim. From a shlamim to an ayla, when it's going higher, you have to tell me that should work. You told me you could remove holiness when it's just the value. That to increase the holiness, you have to tell me that I wouldn't have known that it could go higher in holiness. Of course, it can go higher. How do you remove it? But if you can remove it, then for sure it could go higher. And if it's dealing with both value, then why do we need this? Gemara says it must be. Well, there's an understanding over here. It's implied that it must be that Kedushas Haguf. It must be that this price is dealing with Kedushas Haguf as well, inherent holiness as well. Otherwise, why do we need two cases? Now,
even the Reisha?
One of them needs to be Kedushas Haguf.
The Sefer.
Maybe the Sefer. Yeah. The Sefer.
That wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
But it's going up in holiness. So
because it's going higher. The Sefer is going down. Oh, the Sefer starts off as a shlamim and becomes an ayla. Right. But the Gemara wasn't suggesting Yom Reishi B'Kedushas Haguf, the Sefer Kedushas Damim. At least that's the way this Mefarish explains. Yeah, it could be the Sefer or the Reisha. The way we would do this is, why would I need a Sefer to be Kedushas Damim if you already told me Kedushas Haguf? The reason why it was to tell me, the reason why I would do that is because I could have thought that the ratio was also Kedushas Damim. So it tells me the safest Kedushas Damim to tell me that that can't be the case of the ratio, or else it wouldn't have had to tell it to me. So the ratio would be Kedushas Aguf. It's called Tana Seifa Legluye ratio. It teaches another case to imply what the first case was talking about. To tell me that the first case can't be just the same as the second case. Yeah, tomorrow.
So, how even you had a sheep you designated as a carbon, right? And then you decide, you know what, I want to give this sheep one, even a better sheep, right?
You weren't allowed
They
to.
both go.
Right, you weren't allowed to.
So, since when can you designate something for carbon and decide, you know what, now I want to give it for a different carbon,
Right.
even if it's a better carbon?
I guess we're taking this time limit very serious. That because of the time, the restraint on this, on the sanctity, we're able to take it off. I mean, if we're only dealing with Kedushas Damim, then fine. If Kedushas Aguf is getting complicated, because how do we take this back to the woman? That you have to go. Let's check out that. The Ran quoted a Yerushalmi. It says. The Yerushalmi said that by a carbon, if he says this is an oila for 30 days, after 30 days, it goes out to chulin. But by a woman, when he says Hariyat Mekudeshes for 30 days, she's married forever. So it says, what's the difference? He said, well, we do find that Hektish could leave without a pidyon, without a redemption, but we never find a woman leaving without a get. So where do you find Hektish Yetzpele pidyon? It says, stay mikna. Stay mikna. I think there certain fields that return to the by Yovel, certain things would go back. So if someone bought something, if someone purchased something, then he consecrated it, but at the 50th year, it needs to go back to the original owner. So the purchaser, like leased it, but we consider that bought. He bought it, and nevertheless, you see it goes without pidyon. So you see sometimes there is a concept of hektish that's leaving without pidyon. That's what he quotes from this Yerushalmi. But okay, so therefore it would never go back to the woman to say that she would not require a get. This poor kid is married. I don't know if he ever divorced her and follow up.
Gets married out with the person, let's say,
well, for him, there's no real problem. He has a second wife. All right, but that girl is married somewhere. You know, that's a problem.
But here says that if either of them like retract, like, doesn't count.
If either of them retract, 1 second. You may be ahead of me.
No, betrothed, be betrothed to me after 30 days.
Oh, 1 second. Yeah, wait on that. That's coming up now. 1 second. Okay. So the Gemara now says, Barpada said that you need to redeem it after it gets cut down. Remember, he consecrated the sapling until it gets cut down. But once it's cut down, what does he need to do? He needs to redeem it. Why should he need to redeem it? There was a time limit on it. We just learned that time limits can go, especially if it's just Kedushas Damim. Especially if it's just the value.
What is the same word?
Damim, yeah. Damim is tarti mashma. Yeah, I think there's a Gemara that says, why is money have the same word as blood? Because the person like spills his blood to earn a livelihood, to earn a living. So damim tarti mashma.
I think they also consider money as life. Because they say like a person that loses all their money is like.
Oh, it's like he's dead, right? Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Isn't someone going to say the joke, your money or your life?
You or your wife.
Okay. I have to remind you. Amar Rav Papa says, Amalach Barpada. Barpada, Rav Papa says that Barpada will explain this brisa that got quoted, Hachi Kamar. What it really means is like this. Im loy amar me achshav shlamim, then la'achalam yom oila. Havi. He doesn't mean that it's an oila after 30 days and it's a shlamim for the first 30 days. No, what he means is there's several ways of reading this. One of the ways, it's easy to read it with the chesuri mechzer of a hachiktani, but the brisa is missing words. You have to adjust it and fill it in. Other way is that you just divide it in half and it was separate cases. He could say two independent statements. One is in 30 days, it's going to be an oila, but he doesn't say that it's a shlamim now. In 30 days, it's going to be an oila. Or he can say it's a shlamim now. But then he doesn't say in 30 days it's an oila. But if he said, there is a way of saying that in 30 days it's an oila, and that's it. So it's not another oila sprint off.
No, Ola you said
it's holier.
Holier. So
Yeah.
Ola and that's why you have to use by the Russian, because the one will fulfill that you're not going down. So that's my.
Okay, and it says midi dahavi, just like let's say someone tells a woman, he gives her the money now. He says, you are married to me in 30 days. After 30 days, in 30 days you're married. Accept it now. The Mekudeshes, the Mekudeshes that she's married in 30 days, even though the money is already used up. That you don't need the money to be hanging around in existence for the 30 days. She's married now. So too, the person can say that this is an animal this animal will be an oila in 30 days. The Gemara says pshita. If that's what it's saying, I don't need a brisa to tell me that. It's talking about that he retracted. And what's telling me is that you can't retract. Even though it didn't happen yet, but you can't retract. This is going to work according to the opinion that says by the woman that let's say now this is where your thing comes in, where if the woman says, okay, I want to back out of this, it's a good thing that we didn't get married yet, that she's not allowed to back out without a divorce. But according to the one that says that she could back out, so why by the sacrifice are you saying that they can't back out? If by the marriage they could back out because it didn't take effect yet, it's going to take effect in 30 days. The money was given, but it's going. And over there's one opinion that says that they can't, that they can back out. And now we're saying by the sacrifice that they can't back out. He can't back out of it. He says it should be an oila in 30 days. The sacrifice. So the Gemara says. Even according to the one that says that by the woman you could back out, over here it's different. You cannot back out. Why? Because a statement to heaven is like a transaction amongst the regular people. The
sale is final.
It means to say, yeah. By a regular transaction, once the transaction is done, the sale is final. How does that work when you do a transaction with heaven? So you just make a statement. So that statement is final as if it would have been a transaction by with a kinyan. It's like as if there was a kinyan. So you can't. So therefore, you can't retract if he says that it's going to be a sacrifice in 30 days. But there is an opinion that holds that you can retract from the marriage if it didn't take effect yet.
I'm gonna tell you, so the statement. So what's 400 shekels between you and me? Should have been permanently sealed. You have it too, right? You know where I'm getting. When Avram's talking with
Right.
Ephraim, the guy says, "What's 400 between good friends? This statement between man and man. And they make the
No,
should,
it's only if you would have made the statement to Hashem, I'm going to give you 400 shekels. And he says, oh, I didn't give it yet, so I'm retracting. So that doesn't work.
Oh, the
But-
statement has
yeah,
to be,
yeah.
not
But here he said consecrating to Hashem. So that's why he can't retract. But if it's a statement to someone else, then he could retract until the transaction is final. Okay, have a
It's
good
like
day,
that
everyone.
joke with the parking spot. Hashem don't want on the parking.
what was the joke?
The parking spot joke.
What's my spot?
But
Yeah, no, it's okay. I found my own spot. He says he has a business meeting.
Yeah,
He can't find a parking spot though.
yeah.
So he says I'll give half the proceeds of this business deal to tzedakah if I find a parking spot. And then right then a car pulls out. He pulls into the spot. He says, "Don't worry, I found my own spot."